us to maintain the world cleaner, safer, and habitable for us and our next generations. So let us start with the concept of energy. Before I start my presentation, I'll be happy if you can raise any question. Do you have any question? So if you don't have any question, let me start my presentation, right?
Okay, sir.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay, thank you. So I'm giving a synopsis on energy baskets in India. Our area is 32 lakh 87,240 square kilometer, and Indian population is 1.37 billion. In fact, it has increased right now. I cannot say exactly, but it is about 1.4 billion. And the present economic strength is almost 2.7 billion. However, we are intending to be a 5 trillion, 2.5, 2.7 trillion. We are intending to be a 5 trillion economy by next 5 6 years.
Sir, hello.
Yes.
Yeah, sir, are you still in the first slide? I mean, in the first page?
No, I have gone to the second page. Has it not been shifted?
No, sir, it's not shifted yet. At least in
Okay,
my case, it hasn't.
let me see.
Yeah, so now it has.
Now it is, na?
Yeah, yeah,
Let,
yes. Okay,
let me
thank
go
you.
in the slide share mode. Are you see the entire screen or you are seeing part of the presentation?
It's only a part of the presentation.
So let me go through the slideshow mode. Let us see whether the changes or not.
Sure, sir.
Has it changed?
No, sir, not yet.
That is the problem. It's happening.
I can see the cursor, but it's not.
Now the second slide has
No, sir,
come.
I can. So it's showing the third slide. I mean, I can see your cursor hovering on the second slide right now.
Yeah, that is the problem. It's happening. I don't know. Something is.
So I think we can manage with that. Like at
So
least like the slides
let
are
us manage
changing.
with that.
Huh.
Ultimately, I'll get it
Huh, huh, huh.
checked by IT guys.
All right, sir. Sure. Thank you.
So we are intending to be a $5 trillion economy by next 5 6 years. India is third biggest after USA and China on energy production and consumption. So we are having a huge quantum of generation that we'll talk. Our per capita energy consumption is 24 gigajoule. This is considering the entire economy. Just a minute. হ্যালো। হ্যাঁ, আমি একটা ক্লাস নিচ্ছি, হ্যাঁ, পরে কথা বলবো। So, India is third biggest after USA and China, both in energy generation, energy, and the number of consumers. This is particularly in electricity sector. Our per capita consumption, our per capita energy consumption is 24 gigajoule, and the world's per capita energy consumption is 76 gigajoule. Just imagine, we are almost one third of the total energy consumption comparing to the world average. Indian energy resource basket comprises of coal 56%, crude oil 30%, natural gas 6%, nuclear 1%, hydro 4%, and renewable 3%. India has to import energy, not physical energy, but the resource of energy, which imports 200 plus million ton of crude oil, about 80% of total demand. And all you know that India is very poor in oil production. We don't have much of oil mines. So oil fields we don't have, only in few locations. So gradually, yearly, the oil import is increasing. Similarly, we don't have very high grade quality coal also. So this high grade quality coal is also has to be important, which are required primarily for metallurgical purpose. But even high quality coal is also used for generation, thermal generation also. So we import 200 plus million ton of crude oil, which is about 80% of total demand, and 30 million ton of liquid LNG, liquid natural gas, and 140 million ton of coal, which is about 45% of total energy requirement. And if you think that we are consuming a mind-boggling figure on importing of such energy, which is amounting to $100 billion, which is equivalent to 8 lakh crore. Just imagine 8 lakh crore, which is not a very, very meager amount. So our energy consumption is pretty high in which gives a big dent on our economy. So what to do now? How to move ahead? Now let us see the next picture, where we intend to explain the growth of energy requirement. Now, every country, every people, every person wants to grow. Grow means grow economically. Here, growth means we will understand that economic growth, or economic growth is manifested with the growth of production, growth of financial strength. And if you see the Indian GDP average since independence, you can see that there are undulations. Sometime it has gone more, sometime it has gone less. But on an average, since last 74 years after independence, the overall GDP is growing. And that's why the economic condition, despite the growth of manpower, has increased. So now how growth is possible? Appreciate that in the growth pattern, energy is a major has a major role to play. Energy is an important item because if you want to produce something mechanically or through machines, now after uh, invention of electricity, every machine is usually run through electricity. Earlier, it is used through steam powers where energy is also required, where coal energy, that is the chemical energy of coal, used to get transferred. Now, the such type of conversion is not required. So, from mechanical machining, we have shifted to electrical machines, and the electricity is giving much more efficiency to the entire process. So, electricity consumption has become an integral part of growth index. So, what has happened? You see that the economic growth is almost 6% every year, and hence the electricity growth is also 4 to 5% or even 6% year to year. So YOY, year on year growth is around 6% in Indian scenario, and it also dependent on the growth and government's involvement of economy for growth purpose. Now today, when the Prime Minister has considered this Atmanirbhar Bharat, he is expecting more and more industries to set up, more and more manufacturing hubs to generate. And so we can expect more and more energy will be required in future. And since growth of production, growth of any services converts into money, so if we need to be an economy of $5 trillion, that is, we intend to be third in the economic strength, what we are fifth now. If we want to elevate our position, we need to have more, you know, extravagant on spending our energy. One thing you must keep in mind that we can increase our expenditure on energy, but that should be in a very prudent way. Otherwise, what will happen? There will be wastage. So, whatever we need to do very cautiously and very efficiently. That's why the question of energy efficiency is coming, and the usage of energy efficiency is becoming prolific. Everywhere we talk about to be more efficient on energy expenses. Now let us see the growth of per capita energy in India. Since last 10-15 years, if we see the statistics from 2008-9 to 2020-21, say last 20 years statistics, if we see, let's say last 15 years statistics, we see 8 to 23 right now. 23 figure is not there. 21, 22 is there. 23 figure is only not much of something around 1250. So 2019 it was 779 per head, and now it has gone to 1208 per head. But if we talk about the global energy consumption on an average, it is almost 4000. So what happens that if we consider the total energy consumption, which was 72 gigajoule and our is 24 gigajoule, which is again one third in total energy consumption, which comprises of even wood stock energies like oil, charcoal, coal, wood, electricity, every item taken together, the consumption. And now, if we take only electricity, so the same ratio is maintained. So here, electricity, our consumption is only 1208, say 1250, which is almost one third, even less than one third of the global average. Why the global average? Because developing countries, they take 7,000 to 10,000. You consider South America and countries almost similar to Indian economic strength, they are around 2,700, 2,800 average. China is almost 4,000. World average is 3,126 and India is 1,208. So it is again one third. Now, what is our situation? Growth rate of Indian economy is on the medium track, but we need to increase it. Hinges on its ability to provide electricity, need to elevate the living standard. Now the question of sustainability comes, because human beings who are the main habitats of the world, their living standard, if you see in country to country, they're different. In India, the living standard is much below, because India is a different country. You see, there are, people are stinkingly rich in India, and you will find very poor people are living in India. So there are, if you, there is as such, no uh, midline or average. The common average people, they are also much below than the rich people, and the poor people is also, their standard is wide apart from the mid level people. So we live in these dichotomies. But however, what is happening, that due to trickling effect of, becoming a richer economy, the some of the effects are coming down to poor people. So the number of people who are living in the below poverty line are increasing. So I mean, the reducing. So below poverty line people, so the people living below poverty line, they are comparatively lesser. So what is happening, as such their living standard is increasing, their consumption pattern is also increasing. So they are using little bit more of electricity, and as a whole the electrical demand is increasing. At the same time, the government has developed a total project of electrification to all households, which is also completed by the last or year before last. So every corner of our country has been electrified. So it is also giving a possibility of increasing electricity. And all you understand that electricity, person having electricity or person don't have electricity, their situations are absolutely different. Wherever you get electricity, you increase your daytime by at least 5 6 hours. So from evening 5 to say even late 10, you can, so long you are, you are awake, you can put it in some constructive work. So the economic strength will increase, so the productivity will increase, and so the human condition is expected to increase, and that is happening today. Now, peculiarity of Indian power system, that is very interesting. You should understand that the Indian power system, if you see, we have skewed resource distribution. It is quite natural that coal mines are not concentrated in a specific area; they are distributed, and they are not evenly distributed. In some states, they do have more coal mines, and in some states, they don't have. The oil, same with the oil mines. If you talk about the renewable resources, even wind, even solar, the solar insurance is high in some locations, the wind speed is high in some states. But again, the rivers, for hydroelectricity, they are also not equally present in all the states. So wherever you find a suitable location of producing hydroelectricity, we need to put your dam, or we need to put your hydro turbine there. If it is run up the river, then put hydro turbine on the river itself. If there is a catchment area, you put your banks, make a reservoir there. Yeah, the coal mines, where you put generators there, because you need not to transfer coal through railways or others, because that increases additional cost of transportation, tariff, and etc. So the resources are not, uniformly available, and also the skewed resource distribution, and the resources is not also enormous in quantity, that also have shortages. So we need to be very, cautious in generation and distribution systems. the long haulage of power, because that is required. Wherever there are thermal stations, wherever there are coal mines, we produce thermal generating stations there for good hydro resources. We produce hydro generations there, and the load centers are not really there. So the load centers are where the areas is industrially, having the industrial facilities. There are roadways connections, there are less forest areas. So these two locations are different. If these two locations are close, then you are lucky, but unfortunately that doesn't happen really. So there are haulage of transmission lines. You need to transfer electricity from the point of generation to the point of consumption. So you need to have a very high strong transmission network all over the country. The weather extremes are there. The North India is cold because of the Himalaya. The central India, or the northwest part of India, where Rajasthan, because of weather condition, climatic conditions, they are always dry and hot. And the mid portion of India is also having a very hot summer. The western eastern part have is a rainy area. The western part is hot and humid again, and the southern part again is hot and humid, and with hilly terrains of this Deccan Plateau. And just a minute, please. Hello, hello. হুম, ঠিক আছে, পাঠিয়ে দাও। হ্যাঁ, ঠিক। So these are the weather extremes, and there are diversity in India. Diversity, definitely diversity in language, diversity in habits, diversity in day evening period. If you see sometime the Calcutta evening and the Mumbai evening, these two times are different. You see that Mumbai evening comes later, Delhi evening comes later than Calcutta, because of their geographical positions. Although we don't have any different time zones, but physically, when you sit in Shillong and if you sit in Ahmedabad, there are actual time differences. But we don't have considered these things in our time zone calculation. But truly speaking, there are differences, and that advantage is taken when we form the national grid. So power flows from eastern to western region, because the eastern region, usually the peak region comes later in the western peak time, and the eastern region then the peak falls. That I think you have understood this. Any idea, any question on this? এই কথাটা
No, sir.
এই কথাটা বোঝা গেছে?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So what is the total generation situation in India? We have much of thermal. Because why thermal? There are many coal mines in India. There are coal rich zones. I will show you which are the coal rich zones and what is the coal situation. But you just know that India is having fifth largest coal reserve of the country, of the world. But unfortunately, the quality of coal is not that good in India. We What was the good quality of coal we had in Asansol Raniganj area, that has been all exploited, and we have already consumed those in our system. So we have uh, inferior quality coal, and nevertheless our thermal generation is 236 gigawatt. We have hydro generation of 46.85 gigawatt. We have nuclear of 6.78 gigawatt. We have renewable of 118.09 gigawatt, out of which I will give you the breakup. The total is 407.8 gigawatt. You just listen. I will share the presentation with you, so you need not write. The renewable as it today, we have considered small hydro are renewables, but large hydros are not under the category of renewables. You can say these falls under non-fossil fuel category, non-fossil category. However, the small hydro is almost 4.59 gigawatt, say 5 gigawatt. Wind is 41.7 gigawatt. Biomass is 10.2 gigawatt. Waste to energy is almost zero point 0.5 gigawatt. And solar is 60.8 gigawatt. Total 118.09 gigawatt, almost 118 gigawatt. And non-fossil, you add hydro with that, you will get almost 165 gigawatt of non-fossil, and rest is fossil, thermal, nuclear, thermal and nuclear. And nuclear is kept in a separate category. It is not in renewable, but it falls under green power. What is green power? Which do not emit carbon, which do not emit carbon dioxide. So these are the breakups. These are the breakups. There are few. I'm not taking much time on this page. Our electricity coverage is 99.99. You can say almost 100%. Installed capacity, it was earlier installed capacity, now it is 407, so you get it corrected. Production, financial year 2019, it was 1598 terawatt hour. This year it has increased more than 1650 terawatt hour. Share of fossil energy 75%. It is reducing gradually, but still it is not much less than 73%. Share of renewable energy 17.3%, which is increasing day by day, but not much. Greenhouse gas emission, GHG emission, which is 2194 million ton of carbon dioxide. Average electricity usage 1208. Transmission distribution losses 21.04. And the consumption by sector, who are the consumers? Residential 24, industrial 42, agricultural almost 18%, commercial 8%, traction means trains, they take 1.5%, and others, shops and others, etc., industries, I mean, not industries, shops and establishments, they take around 6.1%. So this is basically, so whenever you talk about electricity, you just keep this thing in mind, that there are two sections working in electricity. One is supplier.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, in the fifth presentation, you told that large power plant are not considered as a renewable. Is there any reason? Means why it is not called as a renewable, not considered as a renewable in fifth presentation?
See, normally hydro is a renewable, but what happens in large hydro, there are many issues. What are those issues? Because whenever you are using hydro, you are having a large water bank, large reservoir, and you need to eradicate people from its catchment area because of the possibility of any future problem. If any crack, any unwanted devastation do take place, it will inundate a large area. So what happens, that we consider renewable, which is basically beneficial for the human being. But this type of power plants, which is also causing many harms, and the water, such big water content, do generate possibilities of methane gases and others. So for various reasons, they are not put under the category of renewable. They are, category of large hydro. But small hydros are put in the category of renewables. But right now, that margin is becoming fed. Now the renewable sector is taking the hydro even. So if we talk about renewable non-renewable ratio, what is coming many a times in the newspapers, you will see that they are considering large hydros also. So the demarcation or the distinction between hydro and renewables is becoming fade today. So this is a little bit controversial. So so far, as per the earlier norms, I am telling it this is under non-renewable category. But tomorrow, perhaps this will come under the ages of renewable category. Could I explain you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Now let us think about the energy map of India. This is very important for you because those who are interested in energy and sustainability. Now you see the coal reserve is the rightest, I mean the extreme right one is the coal map, which is showing that in which areas Indian coal mines are there. You can see the coal mines are there in the primary. It is located in the Chotanagpur Plateau area, where which starts from here, the Raniganj others, and it is in Odisha, Mayurbhanj, etc. And some coal mines do exist in the MP area, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, and some is in Western Coalfield. Some more inferior quality coal do exist in the southern area, and some coal mines are available in the Assam region. So coal reserve is about 101 billion ton. It will last for 100 plus years. Mines at Jharkhand, MP, West Bengal, Odisha, Maharashtra, Assam, I couldn't mention, but Assam is also there. Now, problem is that these 101 billion ton, will it last for 100 plus years? There is a question. It depends on the RP ratio. That is, suppose you are having some amount of, say, 100 ton you have reserve, and you are consuming every year 10 ton. So by next 10 years, that 100 ton will be exhausted. So based on your present evacuation or present excavation, it is presumed that this 101 billion ton will last for 100 plus years. But if you consume more, then obviously the year will get reduced. So that is the RP concept. And now we are trying to reduce the coal consumption to the extent possible. There is a rider, because why we are restricting on coal consumption? Because coal thermal generation do generate carbon. So if we want to be, carbon neutral, or if you want to be more focused on sustainability, we should not try to increase more in thermal generation. Rather, we try to utilize maximum of the thermal generation by increasing the efficiency of generation and the efficiency of others. Now, yes, just few minutes back, I told you the sector is divided in two sections. One is at the supplier side, who supplies power, and the other side at the demand side, who are the demand creator. Who is the demand creator? Your consumer. Now, if we can increase their efficiency, the consumption from the consumer sector will be less. So that will give less consumption. That means requirement of less generation, because you cannot store electricity. So that will be our final objective of being more efficient. We need to increase more requirement. You need to increase more factories. But if those factories, suppose earlier a factory used to require, say, 1,000 kilowatt of power, that was their demand. Now, if you make them more efficient, and with this, instead of 1,000 kilowatt, 800 kilowatt will do the same production, then as a whole, what you are doing, you are saving 200 kilowatt of electricity. That means 200 kilowatts equivalent carbon dioxide production you are reducing. Get my point? So that will be our objective in future. Although we are not talking on this subject, we are only talking about the coal reserve, Just for as it came in my mind, it can be it can be good input for you. I mentioned this. Now, second thing is that solar. You see the Indian solar map. The reddish region indicates that the solar insolence is very high there. The solar insolence obviously is very high in the Pakistan, closed India, close to Pakistan, the Gujarat area, and the Ladakh areas, and the Himalayan terrains, and primarily in the south region. But in our region, the solar insolence is not very high. Even then, whatever solar insolence or solar energy we get, the solar energy available in a single year exceeds the possible energy output of all the fossil fuel energy reserves. So just imagine, if we can harness solar energy in a bigger way, we can have a major solution of our grid. But solar energy has a problem of variability, because in day period only you get solar, in the night or evening you don't get solar. And also have intermittency, because when the cloud is there you won't get solar, the generation will drop. So you have to run with these problems and find out a solution, how we can make better usage of solar and how we can improve the efficiency of solar plants. So that is a job left for you people. And the wind potential, this is the the extreme left shows the wind potential. The wind potential is one thing we can say. Again, the wind potential is good in the areas where solar potential is also good, because of natural climatic region. Because you consider the Himalayan range and the Hindu Kush range in the Pakistan. So between these two ranges, there is a wind tunnel which flows below which flows close to Rajasthan, and basically south part of this northwest India. That gives a very good wind force, which allows the wind turbine to generate well. And the western part of this, the Chennai and others, there are also good wind flow. So these are the basically wind zone. So India do have a wind potential of 100 gigawatt plus at 80-meter level. And if you consider the mast height or the structure height more than 300 more than 100-meter, the generation will be 300 plus gigawatt. And if you consider the mast height is around 60 to 80-meter, the generation is restricted to 100 gigawatt. So the mast height increasing, that means the wind tower, on which the wind turbines do rotate, if you increase, it is basically a great technical challenge, because there the wind speed is much higher, so the toppling or turning effect will be more. So you need to make very strong grouting of the basement of the towers, and that is a very very highly technical job and difficult one. So these are the challenges with which we need to run. So far we have taken the easier path of lesser height wind turbines, but if we need to increase more wind load, wind power, wind energy, we need to go in the tougher areas. So it is clear to you now. It's a very common picture how electricity is delivered. It is known to you. Say it is a generator, the extreme left, and there are transmission lines. The generator produces electricity. The high voltage electricity may be from 33 volt or 132 kV, 33 kV, 132 kV, or even 220 kV. The transmission towers transfers electricity, and then they go to the substations. They reduce their voltage there, and at a sub transmission level or at a distribution level, the voltages are brought down to 11 kV, and then it goes to the distribution transformers, and then it goes to the consumers. So this is normal flow of electricity. But now we are basically defeating the process. We are changing the process. We are now basically making a distributed generation, along the system, where we are using solar power, where we are using wind power, where we are using storages, which is basically changing the entire power flow norm of the system. I will come to that in due courses, but try to understand the entire process which used to take place in earlier period has been changed. So we need to improve our technology, we improve our thought process, we improve our systems to match with the change scenario. Now be very careful. This is one very interesting thing I'll be telling you. Electrical regions of India and concept of electrical grid. What is that? For the easiness of making the system to run, we have utilized various grids in India. We have developed various grids in India. The north portion, the green one, as you are seeing, it is of named as north grid. The central portion is known as, and up to the western region, continuing to the Arabian Sea, is known as western region, and north region and western region basically are the what should I say, the separation line of the eastern grid where we belong. And eastern grid is connected in a very thin, with a very thin connectivity, named as the chicken neck, with the northeastern grid. And extreme south, which is demarcating, where the demarcation lines is between the western region and eastern region, is the southern grid. So now in India, all the grids do run synchronously. They are all connected. So these five grids are run in synchronism. What that means, that whatever frequency you see in Assam or in Aizal, the same frequency you will see in Ahmedabad. What frequency you see in Kashmir, the same frequency you will see in Kanyakumari. That means the entire India is connected through electrical networks. And all the machines remain synchronized with each other. That's the beauty of our system. And this system is run in a very critical way through NLDC, National Load Dispatch Center, and all the regional load dispatch centers. The speciality of such individual grids are also there. The north grid, where the maximum load is 65 gigawatt, minimum load is 40 gigawatt, and average is 52. Their generation potential is 106 gigawatt, where 20 gigawatt is hydro and 22 is renewable. This is basically a deficit region. That means whatever generation we expect, we cannot get that generation. Because of what? Thermal generation, if you have got 100 megawatt of thermal generation or 100 gigawatt of thermal generation, you cannot find that all the generators are working at the same time. Some machine has some trouble, some machine has some shortage. So you can expect that 50 to 60% of the machines are at their full bloom. So 100 gigawatt generation capacity reduces to say 50 or 60 gigawatt. And if your demand is around 75 gigawatt, what happens that you will be a fall shortage of say 15 gigawatt, which you need to get supplied from the nearby zones. That is called a deficit region. And here there are 20 gigawatt hydro, 22 gigawatt renewable. So out of this 106 gigawatt, 42 gigawatt is uncertain. Hydro is not uncertain, but it is uncertain because it is nature dependent. In peak winter, the rivers are frozen, so you don't get the river streams for doing hydro generation. And even in peak summer, the river flow is so thin that you cannot produce generation. So only for 4 5 months in the rainy season, the rivers run its full bloom. So hydro generation is good. That is, for a specific period. So the stable generation is from thermal. So normally the eastern region is having, a good resource of thermal generation, eastern and central, western, the central part of India, which belongs to the western region. So they, when they remain synchronized, they allow a flow to the northern region. So basically you can understand that eastern region to northern region, the power flow do take place. The northeastern region is basically have no load. In the northeastern region there are very less industries, only some domestic load, some tea gardens, some hotels, and some cottage industry. So they do not have much generation, they do not have much load also. So their maximum is 3 gigawatt, minimum is 1 gigawatt, and average is 2 gigawatt. But they do have one thing, they do have a good hydro potential. So we need to harness that hydro potential in future. The eastern region, which is very rich in coal, so there are all thermal generating stations, mostly very few are hydro, very less solar. So renewable is also very poor. We have got 33 gigawatt is total generation capacity, 4.7 hydro and 1.7 renewable. And their load is maximum 22 gigawatt, minimum 15 gigawatt, average 18 gigawatt. As they are based on thermal, you can expect that the generation is much higher than the demand. So eastern region do have an excess power capacity which can be pushed to the northern region through the central region. Now in the western region, which basically include the central part of India, their generation capacity is 128 because there is a good amount of thermal generations at the central portion. That is at Chhattisgarh, MP. It is the thermal hub of India. So there are also good renewables because there are good hydro, good solar. I mean the uh, Ahmedabad and Maharashtra area, there is a huge solar potential. So there are solar power, there are wind power. So all together, there are also load is very high. Load is also 62 megawatt and average is 55 megawatt, and their generation is also high. So they are in a balanced situation. So their excess power is also pushed to the northern. Earlier, the southern were also a load deficit area, but right now it has balanced. So southern remains more or less in balanced situation with 55 gigawatt generation, 12 gigawatt hydro, and 4.5 gigawatt renewable. So this is the situation there. As a whole, India's peak demand is now close to 205 gigawatt. Our generation installed capacity is 407 gigawatt. So we do not require any further support, and right now India do not have any energy shortage also. In fact, in future next 4 5 years, if we do not add up even any generation, excepting replenish those which are basically going to be decommissioned because of aging and inefficiency, we have some good capacity where we can accommodate next 3 4 years demand. So this is basically the India's power scenario right now. Now you will see a picture that is the power map of India. I won't go into details. When I share the presentation, you can see that we have got a 765 kV backbone network, because which is basically considered as the central grid of India, where the main power lines are coming and going out depending on the direction of flow, which is also created by the generation and demand mismatch. Where the generation is less and demand is high, power flows to that direction from the central grid. We have got HVDC lines also. Why HVDC is important? Because HVDC allows the grids to remain synchronized. Even there is a difference in frequency as it converts to DC. So there is no such frequency parameters. And the lines are also two in nature, the positive and negative instead of 3 RYB. So that requirement of transmission line and the tower width are also less. So these are the benefits. We have got a 400 kV distributed transmission network, which is 15 1,50,000 kilometer, and capacity of 20, 21 lakh 60 2 lakh 16,242 MVA. So this is basically the India's very stubborn network. Another picture you can see, this is basically the high capacity transmission corridors in India. In India, there are corridors of 400 kV lines from this Assam to Uttar Pradesh and so on. You just go through this, you can have an idea of this. Now let us try to see what I was telling you earlier. So this is basically the hydro-rich areas. The pink arrows are showing from where the surplus electricity is coming. This central, the circle is showing the 765 kV ring main system, and the blue arrows are showing that these are the required areas where power usually flows and from the central region, that is where the energy surplus area, to the energy deficit areas. And there is a green corridor, which is an imaginary corridor, which is identified as a flow path of the renewables which is being produced, as India has been considered as India sorry as India decided that they will be having 175 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2022, which is considering the hydro right now 165, and now has made a much more lofty target of 500 gigawatt by 2030. Now, how to accommodate this 2030, which is variable renewable generation, and which has got intermittency. So they decided, the Indian technology people who are working with technology, the CEA, they have decided not to mingle the renewables with the existing transmission lines, because that will create a lot of disturbance in the main transmission line. So what they have decided, to create a parallel path, a different path for the renewables, and as and when required, those will be connected with the grid. So this is basically the lines, and now the picture what you see is indicating that how the power transmission highway is, and this is basically a dynamic picture which is indicating what I showed, what I have already told you. Now we have spoken little bit of generation and the distribution of Indian power system through transmission networks. The activity of transmission lines are also very critical in nature, because they are transferring bulk amount of power. So you just try to understand that the transmission has a major responsibility of keeping those lines alive and fault free, because it is the main route for transmitting a very high amount of electricity. And if the suppose the capacity of the transmission lines are 200 MVA, 300 MVA, like that. So that means megavolt ampere. So if such a line snaps, if such a line fails, then a big quantum of electricity will stop coming, and that will create load generation imbalance in these two different zones, from where it was coming and from where it was supplying. So one will become load deficit and one will become load surplus. and it will create, because the two sections are connected not only through one lines, maybe through different 2 3 different lines, other lines which will remain connected will be overloaded, and accordingly also they will trip through overload protections or through overload relays. So unfortunately what will happen, two sections will get different, and the frequencies also become different. The load deficit areas will fall, the frequency will fall, and load surplus areas will rise its frequency. So what will happen, if it happens in a very short period, the machines will be unable to pick up or shed off that amount of load, and as a whole the system will be in a great trouble situation, and there may be a possibility of shutdowns and others. So very fast response has to be taken place for the transmission people, and the load dispatch centers and the control centers do take care of the situations, but manual taking care will not be able to erase the frequency fall or rise and to stop the debacle. So there are many automatic response systems which will see that there is phase difference between the first point to second point, and they will initiate actions, they will shed loads, they will create a corrective sessions, reduce loads from the generating stations where the frequency is in the positive side or rising tendency. They will trip some of the coal mills or some of the machines there, so that the load and generation balance again come in, and these do take place automatically to maintain the frequency and keep the system alive. So these are very intricate processes which is connected to the system's operation. Now we will discuss on India's energy challenges. So what is the energy challenges? Electricity demand, loss of distribution, creating pan-India market for renewables, because we are going for renewables, but which are not very common to us. Gradually, we are planting more and more solar units, more and more wind units, but still there are not much of takers, because everyone is keen to have a very stable generation which is coming from thermal. So making wind power or solar power or the renewable power marketable, a total market mechanism is being developed. So there is a challenge in Indian power system. Issues on power reliability. Obviously, everyone is happy to have a reliable power, but no one is happy to get a power which is right now available, but after 10 minutes I don't know what will happen. So everyone is not happy with those things. So we need to make the system more reliable. Legal framework to adopt emerging technologies such as distributed renewable energy. Electric vehicle is coming, so the norms are to be put up for electric vehicles. Microgrids are being set up, so norms and processes are for setting up microgrids. These are the challenges what we people need to take, you people need to take in future. And INDCs under climate change, 40% of electricity installed capacity will be non-fossil fuel by 2030. In fact, this INDC target is very hefty target. I told you a few minutes back that we need to produce 500 odd renewable power by 2030. It is a great challenge. Today, our target was to produce 175 gigawatt, but still we are lacking some quantum, even taking hydro as a renewable. So from 175 to 500 gigawatt, that is basically a great leap, adding of another 300 gigawatt by 8 years. Today we are on 23, in fact 7 years are left. So if the government wants to make this imagination into reality, all of us, we have to work very hard to produce this much of renewables in India. And not only this renewable generation, we need to think of the transmissions and distribution of these renewables, so that unless you get takers of generations, then what you will do with these renewables? You need to have proper takers, and your ultimate objective of reducing carbon dioxide or maintaining the sustainability in energy sector will come into a reality if you can develop the takers, the consumers. So today our total generation is 400 gigawatt and our consumption is to the tune of maximum 200 gigawatt. Now if we add up 500, consider the solar period is again, it's half, half day you are getting solar, and your capacity is to 400, but you are getting the energy much lesser because it is not available throughout the day. Even then, for the day period, you have to use the solar you are producing to the fullest extent. Now this is a challenge. It requires, more utilization of energy in different ways. So I think you are understanding the problem. Even if you do not understand, you can talk to me separately. I will try to give you a better picture, because in this 1.5 hour session it is not possible to touch upon every points, but you try to understand this is a real great problem in India. And you understand the sectoral division of electricity, the generation, transmission, distribution. All you know that there is a transmission generation. We know that generation, the thermal generation, hydro generation, solar, wind, these are there. There are transmission. The power you produce, you need to transmit to some location. So this is a transmission. The distribution, you transmit bulk amount of power, but making the electricity to reach to at the doorstep of you, that means the small retail consumers, is another job. And not only the job is to reach electricity, but it is a business, mind you. Everywhere you need to collect the money for electricity also, and giving them reliable power, 24 into 7 power. So this is a great challenging job in distribution. And here these falters, this system falters, we are having much distribution issues of non-realization of payments, financial shortfall, the financial incapability of the distribution companies, which are basically ruining the country in energy sector. So these are the problems which is coming in distribution sector, and more so like an master of an orchestra who basically controls the entire generation, transmission, distribution, balancing are done by the operations wing. So these are the 4 pivotal support structure in power sector. And in distribution, there are few issues. I'm not going into the details because you need not to know these things. Only you understand that distribution has a loss. What I mentioned, there are many issues which creates the distribution wing weak, because distribution is basically a subject where you need to interact with millions and millions of consumers, read their meters, collect their bills, and and to solve their issues. So as you are helping people try to improve their social condition, giving them electricity, but at the same time, in your business, it hampers if you do not get support from them. So these are the challenges. So let us keep ourselves focused on energy. Let us not digress to those challenges. But in future, if you ask me questions, I will try to make you understand. So what are the focus right now? Focus is basically expected future development in generation. Now what we intend to do? We cannot get rid of thermal generation. But what we need to do, we need to increase efficiency of existing thermal generations and try to reduce the carbon dioxide intent. That means if now my generation efficiency is say restricted to 34%, now if I can increase it to 40%, then with the same burning of coal, I can release more electricity. So what happens that against each unit of electricity, my carbon dioxide generation will reduce. So that is my first approach. Second approach is that while through chimneys, not only carbon dioxide, but there are many obnoxious gases do release, like various hydrocarbons, at the same time sulfur dioxide, nitrous oxide. So if I can control those, that will also improve the environment, since we are talking to environmental issues, at the same time sustainability. So reduction of carbon dioxide is helping you in sustainability. You are reducing the propensity of developing greenhouse gases. But If you release sulfur dioxide, is also very toxic to human lungs and plants and animals, because the sulfuric acid can cause acid rain, the nitrous oxide can cause acid rain, so how best you can reduce those, although you need to have thermal generation. So these are our points. We should know how we can control those, right? So, and stress more on hydro or renewables. That is our objective. Increase the efficiency of hydro, increase the efficiency of renewables. These are the common goals. Increase the efficiency of solar. It's a common goal. Now the solar and hydro do have the problems of uh, intermittency, variability. These problems are there. So in a solar, during a day, it starts solar generation from say from 8 a.m., 9 a.m. Now if you can, and it ends at say 4 a.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m. So if you can elongate this time period using a better responsive material, as soon as the sun will rise, say at 5 a.m., from 6 a.m., you see the solar insolence is becoming little bit forceful. Then the solar generation starts generating. Obviously you can increase the day period, and as a whole what you are doing, you are reducing the night period or non-availability of solar period. Say from 6 to evening 6, if you can make 12 hours solar generation available, rest 4 hours in the evening, you can get it supported through battery storages if possible. The cost of solar will go up, but it is giving a longer solution of giving renewable support. So research work is going on those lines. And the last thing is that we are working, all are working, the entire world is working on hydrogen fuels. So if hydrogen fuels can be utilized as a source of generation, not in a larger scale, because hydrogen efficiency will be less if you produce hydrogen and then again put it in the turbine, make steams, and you allow the steams to pass through turbines, then there will be lot of efficiency losses. Now hydrogen can be put as micro user in different aspects. So these things are being thought of. So these are the future developments in generation. The same process is being continued in transmission and distribution sector. So the distribution of electricity is indicating how best as an end user. This distribution means basically we talk about the consumers, where you can increase the efficiency. The term DSM has come, that is demand side management. Who creates the demand? I told you, the consumers. Now if you can help the consumer, or if the consumers have that knowledge how they can improve their efficiency and reduce the wastage of electricity, obviously they will also be able to reduce their electricity cost. At the same time, the country will be benefited, as the entire cost of electricity, the demand of electricity has gone down without compromising its effectivity or efficiency. So that is our objective. Now, if we can move with these objectives, the objective of sustainability, at the same time, the objective of pollution control or environmental management will be much take care, will be better taken care of. Now, a new era is coming, what is called as a smart grid. What is a smart grid? Smart grid is basically a self-responsive grid, where electricity can interact, where the electricity can interact with through various sensors and digital media communication system through the consumer, so that it can senses the requirement of the consumer and try to give electricity as its sweet will and give the maximum benefit out of it. So earlier, we know that a normal grid, I told you, it's a traditional grid, the generation to transmission to distribution and to consumer, that is the route of electricity flow. And in smart system, the generations are distributed. So the routes are not that defined. Electricity, suppose the consumer having a solar rooftop, then sometimes it is taking electricity from the grid, and sometimes it is generating its own electricity. The electricity flow, the direction of current flow has become bidirectional. So this is basically creating a change. Now this may call unsafe operation also, because if you can switch off the feeder from the consumers or distribution end, but the solar remains alive, then there is a possibility of backfeed of the transformer. So the protocol has to be made that whenever there is any supply failure, automatically the solar generation will also stop, because if it doesn't, you don't know whether the person is in work or not. But ultimately, again, isolating this from the incoming line, you can again switch on the solar system. So this is one very simple thing. For commercial, there will be net metering, or there will be a gross metering system, how much power you are producing and how much support you are giving to the grid. So these are the intricacies. I think in my next session, I will start sustainability and little bit talk on this smart systems, which will be more interesting in future. So can I stop here? Have you understood all?
Yes, sir. We can continue the next class.
I couldn't hear you. Please repeat.
Yes, sir. We got it.
So can you do the class tomorrow, same time? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir means tomorrow. Can I take the class?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Acha, tell me one
Okay.
thing. Are you enjoying the session or you are getting bored?
No, sir, we are enjoying the session.
Thank you. And if you have any query, I think you will be generating a lot of queries. You please note down the queries and send me through WhatsApp, even if you like so.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm happy to see that 33 guys have joined. Please maintain this level. If you become thinner, I'll also lose interest. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye.